Good evening and welcome to the May 2nd, 2022 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Stephen Spur and I am Chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page and also broadcast to Summit's government channel, which is Comcast Channel 34 and Verizon Channel 30. Please note that fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system at the dais and return it thereafter. Andy Ball is the zoning board's attorney. He will advise board members on matters of law and is the key interface with an applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Chris Nicola is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. Mr. Nicola assists applicants with the preparation of applications, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. Mr. Nicola also does not vote on the applications. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearing tonight, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. You'll be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. Mr. Nicola, will you please call the roll of members?
Sure. Chairman Spur?
Here.
Vice Chairman Steiner?
Here.
Mr. Yuko?
Here.
Mr. Mullen is excused. Ms. Newell?
Here.
Mr. Millay?
Here.
Mr. Loikitz?
Here.
Ms. Toth?
Here.
Ms. Sager?
Here.
Dr. Levine?
Here.
And Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum, you can proceed.
We generally hear the applications in the order they are listed on our agenda. We try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes, but we do understand that some applications are too complex to be heard within that time frame. Each hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. Once board professionals and board members have completed their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about the application. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Before you ask your questions, please clearly state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address. It is important that our court reporter be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. Our court reporting is done through the YouTube, the video recording, so it's especially important you speak clearly into the microphones. After all witnesses have been heard, members of the interested public have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public hearing is closed, and we enter into executive session, where the board members discuss the application and vote. You'll be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in our discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If an application requires additional information or testimony that cannot be presented tonight, we will carry your application to another date and it will not be decided during this meeting. Krista Anderson, the city zoning officer, has asked that I remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and to pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will necessitate additional follow-up from zoning and other city staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision will normally be available 1 month after we decide the application. Before we get to the roll of the public hearings, if you'll join me in rising for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So we'll just quickly ask a representative from each of the applications to come forward to the podium. We just want to confirm how many witnesses you have. First on the agenda, I don't think the agenda order has changed, Chris, right? 219 Springfield Avenue. Hello, do you mind just coming up here real quick? Whomever, yes, thank you. How many witnesses are here for the application?
Just me. I'm Tim Klesse, the architect.
You're Tim Klesse, the architect. All right. Tim, you think you'll be done in under 30 minutes tonight?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. You can grab a seat. Next on the agenda will be 70 Hillcrest Avenue.
Hi, Jude Avellino. I should have myself and the engineer, Kathy Muller, so we should be done in under 30, I hope. But I always hope that.
That's right. Thank you.
I'm just going to stay up here.
Are you representing 26 Joanna Way?
I am.
Excellent.
So this will be me and the engineer, Ryan Smith. And again, I think it's going to be under 30 minutes.
Okay. 17 Baltusrol, no?
Nope.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry. Good evening.
17 Baltusrol?
Yes.
Yes, Fred D'Arcangelo. I think I can do it under 30 minutes.
Any witnesses
I'll
with you?
abbreviate the presentation and maybe leave it open for board questions.
Okay.
So get through the experts.
Great. How many experts with you this evening?
Two. I was going to put the applicant on, but maybe we don't need to.
Okay.
Two experts, an engineer and the architect.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll start back at the top of the order, 219 Springfield Avenue. We'll just need to hear from the applicant first, if you wouldn't mind. You can come to the podium or, yeah, wherever's more comfortable for you. That's fine. Yep. Wherever's more comfortable for you. Maybe while your architect is getting set up, we'll swear you in.
If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I'll speak truth.
And please state your name and spell your last name.
My name is Rekha Chakri. I live in 19 Springfield Avenue. I've been living there for 24 years. And we're just doing some extension.
So we're going to let your architect do all the heavy lifting for you tonight. We just very briefly want you to introduce the application. So what generally are you here seeking approval from the board for?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been living there, as I said. I have a small split-level house.
Okay.
Then I really wanted to have a newer house, like centralized kitchen, which is not there, and little extension to family room. That was the only one missing. I thought of moving. I looked around, and I was kind of not so satisfied. And Tim has helped me to do an addition several years ago. So we thought, why don't we call him again and have him our dream come true with the central kitchen and the extension, and we don't have to move.
Okay.
So that's how it ended up.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant from the board? Any members of the interested public here this evening for this application? 219 Springfield Avenue. Okay, excellent then. So we're going to swear you in, and then we'll let you begin your testimony.
If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
It's Timothy Klesse, K-L-E-S-S-E.
You, and you've appeared before our board relatively recently, correct?
Yes.
Any changes to your credentials since the last time you appeared?
No.
All right, I imagine the board would once again like to accept your credentials as an architect.
We will accept your credentials.
Thank you.
If you're going to stand and present, you just mind kind of pushing the microphone to the edge, just so we can get as good a recording as possible. Thank you.
I guess I could have muted it before I did that. The site is, well, Mrs. Chetri's correct. I worked in this house with her, I think about 10 years ago, and we added up above. It's at 219 Springfield Ave. And since then, her son is, I don't know, 30 or something now. I don't know how old he is. And they've decided to stay in the house. And she really wants to add this room onto the first floor so she can stay there. They looked around to see if they should move into something else and just decided they wanted.
I guess too big or not enough.
So they really just decided to stay. So it's an RS 25 zone, so it's a lot area required of 25,000 square feet. We're at about 14,965, so kind of way undersized, This zone's really set up for, I'm going to say the larger houses that are behind us. This lot was kind of carved out of one of those larger parcels somewhere down the road here. I guess probably in the 50s, because it looks to me like the house was built in the 50s. So I'm going to go to my BOA sheets, which are exactly the same as your BOA sheets. I'm going to start on my BOA 1. On the left is the existing survey, and it's really a rectangular box with a small porch, which was later enclosed, like an old screen porch on the right side. It was enclosed at some point in time. And there's a wood deck along the back and some wood retaining walls, because the hill really goes up back there. It's kind of steep. Now I'm going to flip to the right side. Our proposal is to add a one-story addition in the center and the rear, and also remove the deck and put in a patio, and remove these wood retaining walls and replace them with a, a stone wall. Get rid of the, it's almost like a redwood, pressure-treated kind of. It's a little bit deteriorated. It's a little bit interesting in this case, is that as we remove the deck and turn it into a patio, we actually help our building coverage on the site, because the deck is really included. So by doing this, we've actually helped their building coverage as we added additional building coverage. So now I'm going to my BOA 2 sheet, and if you go into it, I walk in the front door. The existing kitchen is right there, directly behind the front door. And our proposal is to add 15 feet into the back of the house by about 13 and a half feet wide. And that will enable us to get a little family room back there and redo the kitchen. Everything else on this plan is remaining as is, with the exception of the removal of the existing deck and the creation of the new patio. The new retaining wall is running right across the back of the property here. You can see how the property itself has this little V cut into the back. And I'm going to confuse you a little bit and go back, because I forgot to mention that there's this V cut in the back of this property. And that's really hurting us in terms of our rear yard setback. So if I go up to my elevations, which is again my BOA 3 sheet, it's really just a one-story building on the back of this house, a one-story addition coming out if I'm looking from the right side. Here's that retaining wall that we're putting in, right, which is really a replacement of the existing wood retaining wall. And then if I go to the left side, that's my building on the left. I go on with this a little bit so I don't belabor it. And just show you some photos, which I guess is an A1 for me. Mr. Paul,
This would be
am I
A1.
right?
Can you just tell us when these photos were taken, who they were taken by, and if they fairly represent the current
I
condition?
took these photos myself about 3 months ago.
And they fairly represent the condition of the property as they exist today?
Yes. I'm going to call this one my A1. The front of the house will remain exactly as it is. There's no work going on. This is actually the right side, which is that one-story building is back there, not really even visible from the street, but I just wanted to give you a sense of what's going on. And then on the rear, you can see this sort of redwood patio on grade that we're removing, and the new building is going in right in this area as we pull back into the rear yard. I come to this final picture, the existing deck on grade, and then here is that retaining wall, the wood retaining wall in the rear that we're asking to remove and put in a new stone retaining wall. It's going to go to the, as we submitted this application, Krista really, and Chris too, wanted us to submit an engineering drawing just for the board for, I kind of balked on it a little bit because I thought it was a little bit small for that, but they wanted it, so I found an engineer, which is kind of difficult to find if there's any engineers out there. We're looking all over the place for engineers at this point. But anyway, I got it done, and you can see the way the property in the rear feeds in, and my setback from that corner to the back of the building is actually 23.9 feet, which is a deviation. We're supposed to, I think, be 45. Yes, 45. Our existing condition is at 38.9. So it's an increase of 5 feet. The rear yard setback to the patio or deck is required to be 35, and that's this area, right? The red is the existing deck, and the black that's a little deeper is the actual patio. It's existing at 27.27, and our proposal is 23 feet. So it's actually an increase of 4.27 feet. That's the little deviation between that red and the black, which I think is also colored on your drawings too. Yeah, I can see this. The final, there's another one that we're seeking tonight, and that's for the side yard for the proposed deck. In this case, it's required to be 17 feet, which is actually the building setback, or the required building setback, which this site doesn't conform to. But the existing side yard setback is 8.5 for the existing wooden deck, and our proposed is 10 feet for the new patio. So that's actually an improvement of 1.5 feet. The final issue here is building coverage. Right? Now remember, this is a 14,965 foot lot where 25,000 is required. The building coverage is required to be 14%. We're existing at 15.9, and our proposal is to be at 14.3. So that's a 0.3%, not a 3% variance, but a 0.3% variance. And it's a kind of a sizable improvement. It's an improvement of 1.6% in terms of building coverage, because the deck itself was counted as building coverage, and as we flip it into a patio, it doesn't count as building coverage. That is, just so the board realizes, you need to sign it. That's I'm making a deal about it because it's advantageous to my application, but it's not. We're replacing an element that is on grade with another element that's on grade. I don't want you to think we're replacing a raised deck and making a site improvement by lowering it. But the fact of the matter is that the wood deck is counted as building coverage, and it becomes a credit to us. Puts my building coverage at this site at 14.3, whereas 14% is required. And that's my total list of variances. I think the site itself can easily accommodate this. It's actually a little interesting that it's the site is a little wider than it's required to be. It's the site itself is only required to be 100 feet wide, but it's existing at 113. So there is a good amount of room on this left side. It actually conforms on this side to side combined because it's so wide. So and I'm only saying that because the site itself can accommodate the additional area that we're proposing tonight. You know, this rear yard setback is really concealed to the rear, not visible from the street, and it's really 100% due to the awkwardness of this lot, this little point that this lot has, where we're getting hurt at probably the worst point that it could be. This lot from the Chetry's backyard continues to slope up, and I think you can see it here. Even though our property line is on this angle, the retaining walls are up here again, higher, and this part of this property, for intents and purposes, would appear to belong to the Chetry's, not to the neighboring house. So I think that helps us in terms of our case, and there is really no building that could occur this way, impacting onto our house. That is everything I think I really have. But the FAR on this site is only as completed at 19.6%, whereas 25% is allowed. So that's part of why I'm saying it's not saturated. Also, the front yard setback for this zone is really 35 feet, and our house is at 48.96, so if I could pull my house forward, I would be able to improve this condition also. But it's probably true that the house being back at this, I'm going to just call it 49 feet to make this easy, is probably more beneficial to the neighborhood and the streetscape in this case than if the house was pulled up and our addition on the rear was therefore conforming. That is everything I can think of for this case. I reviewed all of the notes that came from all the officials. Krista's comments were right on. She reviewed this with me, and I went back and forth with her and Chris about did I really need to do engineering documents for this site, and then she decided that we should, just to make sure.
And you smartly agreed, yes?
Yeah, well, I didn't really have a choice, and I sort of know her pretty well at this point. I also got all the planners' comments, and there's nothing in there that's an issue or a problem. And everyone else's comments.
All right. Let's offer Mr. Dower, the board's engineer.
The only questions I had were just to confirm the steep slope encroachment, that's just limited to the retaining wall being rebuilt? Is that correct?
Yes.
And the other question was regarding a generator. If one is existing or proposed, there's nothing on the plans that we saw.
No, no generator.
Okay.
Hold on. Yeah.
No
He's
generator?
just asking about the retaining wall
Large.
itself.
Okay, excellent. That's it,
No
Mr.
no
Dower?
further questions.
All right,
Thank
very
you.
well. Questions from the board?
Yeah, I just have one. You mentioned Krista Anderson's report. She notes the existence of a front yard parking, pull-out parking area, which has apparently not been approved in the past. Would the applicant like us to consider a variance for that as well?
Yes, please. And Chris was saying that it was in place when they were doing it. And it's a busy street. I think it would be helpful to us if you could do that for us.
You know, the reasons are clear. It's just, I think just for legal paperwork reasons, it's good to clean it up now that
Yeah, I'm
we're aware
sorry
of it.
about that.
Yeah.
I have a question. The property just behind this one, I was curious, well, I can't visualize where the house is on that property because of the way the driveways are, but what part of their yard or their home is just on the the inside part of the V?
Huge front yard before the house.
Okay.
Is it their front though?
I was just curious how it might impact in any way them.
It's a big plants, and then you have a huge front yard, and then the house is above.
Thank
So
you.
I guess you drive into that site from Springfield Avenue.
You do?
Yes.
Right, on the other
So
side
it's
of
really their
them.
front yard.
Got it.
But they're much lower.
Mhm.
Right, they're lower. Our wall is 5 feet and their wall is, well, I think, their wall is 5 feet also. So it's up, we're very low on that.
Mr. Valet?
Looking at the survey, proposed survey attached to your dated or revised on September 30th, 21, it doesn't look like a finished product. Maybe as a part of this package, it should be finalized and without the scribbles on it or the red mark.
You mean the proposed survey?
Yes.
This survey has really been updated and at this point superseded by the engineer's documents.
Yeah, but this is not a survey. This will be the proposed survey, right?
Like it as an as-built?
Yeah.
You mean? It would be, they would do the as-built, the engineer, at the end of the construction.
Okay.
Okay?
Gotcha.
If the board wanted that would be probably a memorialization issue.
Yeah, Chris, is that typically captured
In
as part of the
as-built.
building permit process, or?
To reflect the revisions and the plans, yeah, that would be, do a final as-built.
Yeah, we would give an as-built.
That's what the board would want to do.
Just to fully capture as part of the packet. Andy, any objections?
Makes sense to add as a
Okay.
condition?
So we would just ask that to be included as a condition of the resolution. And before I forget, we would stipulate the application on approval of the engineer's letter, which just captures a number of fairly generic terms. Is there any objection to that?
No, none at all.
Thank you. Questions from members of the board? Giving all the energy for the rest of the cases, I see. No pressure anymore. All right, wonderful. Anything you would like to say in conclusion, either the applicant or the architect? Oh, hold on, slow down.
Not quite there.
Not quite yet. A little more dancing to do on this side. Anything you'd like to say in conclusion, though? No, you don't have to. Okay, wonderful. And then just to check one more time, is there any member of the interested public here this evening for 219 Springfield Avenue? No? Okay, wonderful. All right, Andy, just remind us the two conditions.
That's correct. The first is that the applicants will comply with the conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum, and the second, as just discussed, is that an as-built survey would be provided after construction.
We'd like to begin the deliberations.
I'm happy to.
Amy, go ahead. Save Scott.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So it seems like you're requesting 4 variances and maybe 5 if we count the front yard parking spot. And it seems like the first 2 are due to the significantly undersized lot and irregularity of the shape. And the second 2, while you are still requesting variances, they're actual improvements on the degree of nonconformity. So you're improving your home, you're adding another room, improving outdoor space, and yet you're taking up less building coverage, which is pretty great. I mean, the first 2, I think it was in Krista's letter that I read, if that were a straight line, you would not need any variance for rear yard setback at all. So that's just due to the irregular shape there. Regarding the front parking spot, which we didn't really talk a ton about, but someone personally with a lot of experience living on a very busy street, I mean, providing parking on your lot for visitors is just a safe thing to do.
Turn around and go
Sure.
to the front.
Exactly. So for all those reasons, I am in support of this application. I'm looking, it's a full dais, it looks like. We're missing one person, so it's unlikely I will be voting on this application. However, you have my full support. Sure.
Scott, you want to add anything else?
Sure. I would like to applaud the applicant's restraint. I think the architect made a good point of stating that there's 25% FAR on the table, and they're clearly not even close to that. So thank you for proposing a modest addition to your house. I think architecturally speaking, it makes sense. It looks like it's going to be seamless and part of the original design when it's done, yes. And Krista stole everyone's thunder with her summary in stating that if your backyard was straight, right, the 45-foot setback would be met. So I'm in favor of this application.
Yeah, and just,
I saw Pam's name on the earlier resolution, so Tom, you got to step up, right?
yeah, I see
Close
that.
the deal here, all right?
See that a lot. Yeah, I'm in favor of the application too. I think, just want to add that the forester had no objection. Screening is adequate. It's only that house in the back. I don't know how far it is, but it's very far back. That's a huge property back there, so that house is very far set back from you. As Scott noticed, it's a relatively modest compared to what you could have done. I don't see any negative burden on any of the neighbors, so I'm inclined to support it as well.
All right, thank you, Tom. Joey, want anything else? Nope. All right, wonderful. Good restraint on your part as well. Anyone down here? All right, wonderful. With the deliberations as noted, I too could support the application for all the good and thoughtful reasons that my colleagues have articulated. I would take a motion to approve the application with conditions as noted.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, Chris, give us a roll call.
All right, Vice Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Ms. Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz.
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
Chairman Spur.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Now you can build.
Now you can do it.
No, wait a month.
Now you have to wait a month
Yeah.
until we can do the resolution, and then you can do it.
Thank you. That's not great.
We're going to take just a quick 5-minute recess, and then we'll begin again with Mr. Avellino. So, hang tight.
of them?
We'll gavel back in and we'll talk about it.
Excuse me?
Well, let's gavel back in and
Okay.
we'll talk about it. All right. This evening has become abbreviated. 70 Hillcrest Avenue and 26 Joanna Way have both been identified as having defective notice and will be carried to a date to be determined, understanding that the notice needs to be resolved and at a time that the board understands when, if and when those cases will be heard, we'll post the appropriate notice, and anyone within that 200-foot area will be notified by mail. So anyone here is for 70 Hillcrest Avenue or 26 Joanna Way, have a good evening, and be back in touch with Chris Nicola if you have any questions. All right.
Oh, wait, those are purple.
Are you recusing from the
I am
board?
recusing.
Oh my gosh, you got the best deal of us all.
Are we saving the
See you all in 2 weeks.
Chris, I assume we're saving the paperwork?
Yes, save the paperwork.
Please save the paperwork. All right. All right then, let's move forward to 17 Baltusrol. Wonderful. We're going to, well, we'll have an attorney here, so if you'd like to begin the case, or if you need a few more moments, sorry, we kind of pulled you forward here a little unexpectedly.
No, this is great. We're ready.
Wonderful.
And just by way of opening remarks and in an effort to meet the 30-minute mark, we're going to go directly to the experts. Mr. Flores is here, one of the applicants, can answer questions if you wish at any point.
Would you like us to swear Mr. Flores in just in case he does? Okay, so let's swear him in.
Raise your right hand. And if we could, I guess, move the mic back to the middle of the table, just so make sure we're capturing everything there.
Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I
And
do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Abel A. Flores, Flores.
Thank you.
All right, you may proceed. Thank you.
Yes, I'll begin with our architect, but I would just like to say that the variances that are sought in this application relate to the two items that they're seeking to improve on the property. One is for the expansion of the cutout along the street, and the second is for construction of a small addition, which will allow for the installation of a code-compliant stairway within the house, replacing current non-code compliant stairway, which is, as the architect will testify, in fact dangerous. These are not amenities in any sense of the word. They are based on safety for the family and visitors as far as the addition in the back, and as far as the cutout in the front, safety for the family and the general public, because pedestrians can't use the sidewalk when they're passing their house in the front. And it's treacherous year-round, particularly so if there's ice or snow on the ground. So the applicants intend to remain in the home for the foreseeable future, and these will only enhance the safety, theirs and that of the general public. So I would like to call as the first witness our architect, Robert Puzio. And can we mark Mr. Puzio's?
Is this what you submitted as well to the board?
Yes.
Is anything changed,
No.
color or anything?
No.
You want to mark it then?
We don't need to mark it. If it's
You don't think we
architect
need to mark it, Mr.
Okay.
Ball? Fine. Okay. I will.
Yeah, and let's, as far as mics go, do
Maybe
we
we
want
can
to?
pivot that one on the end. Our IT professional will assist us here.
Thank you.
You can stay by the board if you prefer. We'll just pivot the mic around. Use your outside voice. We'll do the best we can. Thank you.
All right, and
Okay.
I'll swear you in, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Robert Puzio, P-U-Z-I-O.
Thank you, and can you briefly describe your background, experience, and 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
I'm a licensed architect in New Jersey. I graduated from New Jersey Technology School of Architecture. I'm a licensed architect over 20 years. I'm a member of the AIA and the NCARB, and I have testified in front of the boards in Newark, Ridgewood, New Jersey, Glen Rock, Primus, and
Thank you.
numerous, New Jersey.
Thanks. I imagine the board would like to accept your credentials as an architect?
Yes, we'll accept your credentials.
Thank you. Mr. Puzio, the architectural drawings that you're going to refer to tonight, did you prepare those yourself?
Yes.
All right. And what you have on the board is what was submitted to the Board of Adjustment in connection with the application?
Yes.
Now, your involvement in this project is limited primarily to the addition that's proposed in the rear of the home, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So now, can you describe for us the specifics of the addition in terms of matching the exterior of the home, the depth, the width, et cetera?
Sure. So the addition to the home is a 1.5-story addition at the rear of the home. And what we're doing at this addition, it's labeled this area here, the gray area, on sheet A1. And then on A2, you can see the first story plan. And currently at the home, there's an existing service stair, basement service stair that we're removing, and we're utilizing that space as a portion of the renovation of the first story. And the addition is primarily going along with that existing stair foundation over to the side. So it's matching up to what's existing now and filling in area that's 15 feet 8 inches across. And what's happening here is that the existing kitchen is going to expand into that area to accommodate what we're doing right now is an existing staircase going to the second story non-compliant. And we need to remedy that, replace it with a compliant stair. So therefore, the staircase going to the second story is going to empty out into that space at the back. The second story of the there's an existing bedroom, there's an existing lounge area, and the addition at the back, the roof is carried through towards the back over this addition. And we're planning to install egress windows at the rear, so therefore there will be we'll accommodate a safe way to get out in case the egress windows from that lounge area, and it also accommodates the staircase. The back of the house, the addition, is primarily in the center of the home. And the roof line is something that we're trying to keep modest. So we're going, the sides are going to be low. It's going to be a story and a half. With the center area, this is the code compliant area where you could accommodate headroom to access the egress window. And the new slider doors towards the back, and the kitchen is reconfigured to work with the new staircase setup.
So the lounge area, you refer to it as the lounge area, or whatever it might be used for, but there is no effective egress window there now, correct?
No.
All right, so you'd be upgrading for a safety feature there, correct?
Correct.
With regard to the addition, is the width of the addition consistent with the width of the portion of the house that pushes out in the back now?
Yes. So the back of the house now pushes out approximately 8.5 feet, and that width goes across even with that, and it touches upon the area that's already pushed out. So it's pretty much enclosing two areas that are already pushed out.
So across the back of the house, you're not increasing the width of the structure, with the addition, correct?
No, we're not.
Okay. And how much are you adding to the existing bump out on the back of the house by this addition?
The first floor addition footprint, we're looking at 70 square feet.
Now, please address the characteristics of that staircase that you refer to as being non-code compliant.
So that staircase is the primary way to get out and in and out of that second story bedroom area. And that staircase right now is non-compliant in numerous ways. One thing, one item is the width. The staircase is right now, we haven't 29 inches where 36 inches is the minimum requirement. So the staircase is too narrow. But one of one of the hardest issues to deal with is the height, the thread heights. Individual steps at the staircase, they range from 9 inches to 9.5. They're irregular. They're very, very dangerous. Where 8 inches and a quarter is the maximum allowed. So we're over 1.5 inches for each step than what we're supposed to have, meaning that the staircase feels steep, and it is way steeper than it should be. So we're addressing those two, and the bottom landing, 36 inches minimum requirement. We're at 29 inches, so that's another issue. So therefore, to remedy those life safety issues, we have to increase the length of the staircase. And the only way we could really do that without having a headroom issue for the bottom basement stair is to go with the staircase towards the back of the house. So therefore, we have to lengthen the stair towards the back of the house, and that's why we have to accommodate, we have to work with that rear addition to accommodate that need.
In your professional opinion, is there any alternative to an addition in order to accommodate the lengthening of the stairway to bring it into compliance with code? All right. And that existing stairway as it is now, the differential in the tread height, the differential or the slope, let's call it, the width, does that, in your opinion as an architect, constitute a dangerous condition for those using the stairs?
Yes.
I have no further questions for Mr. Puzio.
Okay. Or anything you'd like to
No
ask the
questions
architect?
at this time.
Any questions from members of the board?
You know, I have one question I probably should have asked the attorney when you began your presentation. The zoning officer notes issues with the Union County right-of-way and proper notification being given to the county. Has that happened? Has that been documented?
I had this discussion with Mr. Nicola. We sent the plans to the Union County Planning Board. I got a call from my Mr., I believe his last name, I emailed this.
Kamal.
What?
Kamal Salah, or Saleh?
Yes. And he said to me, we don't get involved with reviewing plans for one-family homes. So I said, well, can you give me a letter saying that? He goes, well, if you pay $200 and file the application, I can give you a letter saying that. So I emailed Chris and I said, look, this is what this gentleman just told me. Do I really need to do this? I didn't hear back, so I took a no to mean it was okay. So I'm making this representation as an officer of the court, that this is what the gentleman told me from the Union County Planning Board, that even if we paid the $200, all we would get was a letter saying, we don't have jurisdiction and we're not going to review your plan.
So it doesn't sound out of character for Elizabeth to put their hands out and ask for a couple extra bucks, but.
No, this is correct.
Is this the process?
Everything Mr. D'Arcangelo said, did occur, and Krista and I did not require the notice.
And Mr. Ball, do you agree? Are we covered?
Yeah, I don't see any requirement that they have to be provided notice. They're not a property owner within 200 feet, so that statutory requirement's fine, as long as Chris and Krista were satisfied that it's been met. I don't see any need for anything further.
Any further, Mr. Yuko?
Yeah, just one other question, maybe, so you have an engineer who's going to testify too?
Yes.
I don't know who wants to address this, but the forester had kind of, says he has no objections, but then he also asked for a replacement landscape plan. So I'm not sure how to take that.
I know, we didn't really know how to deal with that, so.
Yeah.
We'll wait for
Oh,
Mr.
so
Lonzafamo.
Mr. Lonzafamo will cover
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions for the architect? Okay,
All right.
and then is there anyone here in the interested public this evening for this application, 17 Baltusrol? Okay, we'll proceed with your next witness.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Puzio. My next witness is Michael Lanzafama, licensed engineer and professional planner associated with Casey and Keller.
Do you,
Did I do that?
He put his hands up. There's an architecture code in here somewhere. I'll leave it alone.
We're good.
all right, let's try that again.
I thought I saw it move again.
If you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
My name is Michael Lanzafama, that's Lanzafama. I'm a licensed professional engineer, land surveyor and planner, licensed in the state of New Jersey. I'm a principal with the firm of Casey and Keller Incorporated, 258 Main Street, Millburn, New Jersey. I've testified before this board and the planning board on numerous occasions.
I imagine the board would like to accept your credentials once again.
Yep, welcome back, Mr. Lanzafama. You may
Thank you,
proceed.
ladies and gentlemen. So the application that you have before you is 17 Baltusrol Road, which is tax lot 23 and block 4204. It's an undersized lot located in the R6 zone. It's located on the west side of Baltusrol Road, about 400 feet south of Hughes. And the property is undersized at not only in area, but in width as well. It's only 50 feet wide by 102 feet deep, where in the R6 zone, you're required to have 6,000 square feet and a 60-foot wide lot. The property also has an extremely unusual topographic condition. If you've all been to the site, you know that there's about an 18-foot grade differential from Baltusrol Road to the finished floor elevation of the existing house on the subject property. The rear yard is relatively flat. There is a small frame shed. There are a very large evergreen tree at the back property line. There are some shade trees in the backyard. There's one ornamental tree and a number of shrubs in the front yard. And that's where Mr. Linson's coming in about a replacement plan. He has no objection to us removing the shrubs and the one tree that we have in the front yard, provided we come back with a revegetated plan showing some plantings in and above the wall. So that's where that was. So the application here before you this evening is a two-pronged one.
Sorry, Mr. Lanzafama, just before we move on, is it acceptable to the applicant to include as a condition of the application that a replacement landscaping plan be submitted for review and approval by Mr. Linson? Just to check that box?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lanzafama. You may proceed.
Okay. The two-pronged application here, and they're both life safety issues in my mind. The first is the expansion of the existing parking cutout that exists along Baltusrol Road. As you all know, Baltusrol Road is a relatively busy roadway, and parking along that roadway can be impossible, if not dangerous, as well as pedestrian traffic. So you have a number of properties in this area that have a similar cutout that are much larger than the one we currently have. The one we currently have does not afford the ability to get a vehicle in and off the roadway and not block the existing sidewalk. So what we're proposing to do is expand that to a 22-foot wide area by 28 foot deep. And in Krista's memo, she raises the question, why 28 feet deep? Because you're disturbing more steep slopes, you're creating more impervious coverage. The reason is we figure we're going to do this once, and we want to make sure that we have adequate room not only to get the cars in and off the street, but also to be able to walk around the cars, to be able to maybe store a bicycle. They do have several children. You want to be able to get into the trunk if you have an SUV and you want to lift up the hatch you have to make sure that you have adequate room to do all of that. So we felt that the 28-foot wide depth, or 28-foot depth, was appropriate. The 22 feet gives us enough maneuvering room so that we can get in and out of the site. So as a result of that expansion of that parking area, we created a number of variances that are being sought this evening for this application. Obviously, the first is steep slope disturbance. The area that we are disturbing is about 775 square feet. The front yard area has a total steep slope area of just over 1,200 square feet. So we're not disturbing the entire area, but just that 775 square feet. And keep in mind that area was probably disturbed in prior years when the house was built. So this is not a pristine steep slope that the ordinance was written to control. This is, normally this type of an ordinance is written to control heavily wooded areas where you don't want to have erosion and soil loss and things of that sort. And that's not the case here. So that is the first variance we're seeking. The second variance, as a result of the grade change, the retaining wall along the back will be 10 feet high, whereas retaining walls in the front yard are limited to 4 feet. So we would need a 6-foot height variance for the retaining wall. And then for safety measures, we put a 3-foot high fence around the perimeter of that wall so no one obviously falls off. One of Krista's suggestions was that we return the fence to create a gate so no one could walk between the wall and the fence and end up still falling off. We have no problem amending the plan to that suggestion. But in addition to the height of the wall in the front yard, we're also ends up, you have to factor in not only the wall but the fence height, so that's 13 feet, whereas 10 feet is permitted overall between wall and fence height. So you're looking for a variance there as well. With regard to lot coverage, 45% is permitted under the ordinance. The existing lot is already non-compliant at 46.41% or 2,380 square feet. The proposed lot coverage would be 2864, so we're seeking a variance of 484 square feet. That would be the increase was 484. So the total variance request is 556 square feet. We are compensating that by the introduction of a dry well under the driveway area. All the water from that impervious surface would be directed to that dry well so that the water would not sheet off into the public right-of-way. And one of the other modifications we had made to the plan, if you recall, we had an initial submission, we got some initial comments, and then we amended the plan and resubmitted, which is the plan you should have before you. We did reduce the walls. We pulled the walls back to meet the existing walls, so there's no construction activity with regard to retaining walls in the county right-of-way. And that was one of the things that Krista was concerned about. So we eliminated that part of the application. And then finally is building coverage for the bulk variance. So the existing bulk building coverage is 1,372 square feet, or 26.76%, or 20% is permitted. And the proposed building coverage would be 1,473 square feet, or an expansion of 101 square feet for a variance of 447 square feet. So all of these variances, in my mind, can be granted under the C1 and C2 criteria. Obviously, the C1 criteria, we have a property that's an undersized lot. It's more narrow than the ordinance normally permits, so that creates some undue hardship. And obviously, the extreme topographic condition also poses some practical difficulties for us, as well as the location of the existing house on the property, which triggers the rear yard setback for the addition, where 30 feet is required, and we are proposing 25 feet. By way of information, the existing entrance to the basement that bumps out is already 25 feet 10 inches from the rear property line. So we're only looking at a reduction of about 10 inches in that depth. So in my mind, the granting of these variances would certainly advance life safety issues that are caused by the ability to park and move safely in and out of that area. And in a minute, we'll talk about the FAR variance and how that works in. But what I wanted to show you, to give you a sense of what happens along that street, and this was not submitted, so we would have to mark this as A1.
Mr. Lenzafama, did you take these photographs?
Yes, I did.
When did you take them?
I took them just prior to the last hearing, March 20th.
And they fairly represent the condition of the property today?
They do. So we're going to mark these as A1. And today's date is 5. Okay. Thank you. And what photo number 1 shows is a front view of the property as it currently exists. You can see the elevation differential, the existing stone retaining walls, and you can see the vegetation that Mr. Linson was concerned about, was trying to reestablish some of that. And then you can see how the vehicles are parked. And then the next view, photo number 2, shows both the subject property at 17 as well as 15. And you can see the car next door actually is parked up on the sidewalk, so making it very, very difficult. Photo number 3 shows 17 and 19 Walter-Schroll Road, looking in a northwesterly direction. You can see they have a very similar cutout as we do, and they're easily able to get their vehicle safely off the road and not obstruct the sidewalk. And finally, view number 4 is a 15 Walter-Schroll Road, and you can see again, they have a similar cutout, but unfortunately, I guess they had to park the car onto the sidewalk there on that day. Although I drove past today and it's still there. So the D variance that we're seeking, the FAR variance that we are seeking, and under your ordinance, we're permitted to have 35% total FAR. If this were a fully conforming lot, a lot of 6,000 square feet, we'd be able to have up to 2,100 square feet. So what we're proposing is 1,932 square feet, and what we're permitted to have is 1,795 based upon the lot area of 5,128 square feet. So we're only looking for a variance of 137 square feet. And under the Act, what we have to do is demonstrate that this advances some of the goals and objectives of the Act, the municipal land use law. And under the Act, A, item 40:55D2A, it encourages municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of lands in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. In our minds, the upgrades to the home make it more accommodating to all persons of various ages and/or disabilities. Making the stairway safe is certainly an important issue. It also provides for an appropriately sized house, a house that is more up to date to today's standards with regard to space. We're not adding bedrooms. All we're doing is adding additional staircase area that creates more volume to the house. We are adding an area on the second floor to create safer windows for emergency egress if there were a fire. And the facade, the look of the rear facade, as you saw from Robert's drawings, works well with the topography of the site and with the building facade. And as you can see from the exhibit, there's an existing fence along the back line. There's an existing garage, so there's a minimal amount of impact. There's adequate light, air, and open space to support this application. Because if you recall, under the D4 variance, the FAR variance, what we need to demonstrate is that the property can support the additional FAR. And in my mind, that's clearly the case here. The side yard setbacks, as you can see, are easily met. It's well removed from the side yard. Lot lines are still adequate distance to the rear property. The coverage, granted, is over, but it's advancing that life safety issue. So in my mind, these variances, both the C1 and C2 for the cutout, the rear yard setback, and the D4 variance for the FAR can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or the intent and purpose of your zoning plan. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Howard?
Actually, most of my questions were answered. The question, I did have a question regarding the numbers in the zoning table. I assume that based on your testimony, that those are the
Yeah,
actual.
we corrected that.
Okay.
That was,
Is there a setback between the proposed dry well and the property line?
the right-of-way line.
Right.
Currently, I have the edge of the stone area about a foot off the right-of-way line. I could push that further back if you're concerned about that, to make sure we don't have any construction in the public right-of-way.
Right, and obviously the county's not too concerned, so that's fine. We talked about the fence, and I think, unless I'm mistaken, the only other question I had for you was regarding if there's any HVAC or generators on or proposed or existing.
No.
Okay.
Nothing proposed.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Would you have any objection to the application being conditioned on inclusion of the engineer's memorandum, just to capture all of the points that Mr. Dower had raised in the board packet?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Questions from members of the board?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I heard something said, Ms. Lonsford, correctly. Did you say that there would be a landscaping plan submitted to the forester? I thought so. Thank you.
That's board condition. Scott? No?
About this retaining wall, in particular on the side where you're planning to improve the stairway, there's a grass area here, and adjacent to that wall, there is a huge drop. How are you going to protect that drop?
Are you talking about the area here?
No, the other side.
This
Left side, yes.
We have a fence that comes all the way around. We're proposing a fence around the entire wall,
Okay. And on top as well?
on the top as well.
Okay, thank you.
Diana, I see you flipping furiously through that drawing. Go
I
ahead.
see a decorative fence, and then behind the decorative fence is something else. What is that?
That's a silt fence or just
Oh, okay,
limited
that's just
disturbance?
during construction.
Yes, correct, that's temporary.
How far back from the retaining wall is the decorative fence?
3 feet.
And it's only, and it's 3 feet high.
Correct.
So it's like really for pets and children.
Correct.
Any other questions from the board? I think we heard 19 Baltusrol years ago.
That's right, they
I
were
recall that.
permitted to extend the cutout deeper, yes.
We did.
We did. Okay, Mr. Lonsfond, anything further to add?
No, that's it.
All right, well done. Any members of the interested public here have a question for Mr. Lanzafama? Hearing none? Okay. Any further witnesses this evening?
No, sir.
Anything you'd like to say in conclusion?
Not unless the board has any other questions, no.
I would just acknowledge again for the record, there are no members of the interested public here this evening to provide questions or comments for that matter. Any other questions from members of the board? Or we'll ask Mr. Ball to summarize our conditions. Okay, excellent. What do we got there, Andy?
Just the two. First is compliance with the conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum, and second is that a replacement landscaping plan shall be submitted to the city forester for review and approval.
Who'd like to begin the deliberations? We have all that energy saved up from the other two cases, so we're supposed to jump all in here. Scott, bail us out, please.
Sure. I think we could start outside first. I I totally buy that argument that you need to make this deeper in order to have some level of safety. So I understand that design, why it's so deep, and why the retaining wall has to be that tall. So that makes complete sense to me. As far as the inside goes, I would agree. I think it's a very reasonable design to accommodate a code-compliant stair. If you look at the plans of the kitchen, it is tiny, right? And so they're modernizing the kitchen. It makes all the sense in the world. And once again, we have a case of an undersized lot, and I don't think they should be penalized for that. So having said all that, I can see supporting this application.
Care to add, Mr. Lickitz?
Yeah, I mean, I can support it too. It's obviously a very unusual lot. The parking, obviously, a major safety and convenience and practical issue. So the variances are driven by that. And as Mr. Lickitz said, it's the undersized lot. And that stairway is definitely is a positive change. So I have no problem supporting this too.
Okay. I would just simply reiterate for the record the life and safety issues that this seeks to address, the non-code compliant stair, improving also safe ingress and egress. With regard to hardships, undersized lot, lot area, width, and the unusual topography. And looking at, though there's requested increase in FAR, it's relatively modest, and given the peculiarities of the lot can accommodate it. And then every time I hear about a dry well being sunk in, I can expect there to be stormwater management improvements to the site, and we appreciate that investment being made. So with that, I could also support the application, and would ask for a motion to approve the application with the conditions as noted. Liz, come on. All right. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Scott. Bruce, will you give us a roll call?
Sure. Vice Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Ms. Newell? Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Ms. Sager?
Yes.
Chairman Spur?
Yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Don't run away yet. Chris has homework for us.
Did Claire leave for the night?
She's not. Okay.
Good for her.
Did we note that? Note that on the record. Yeah?
Recusal, but.
You would note that Claire Toth recused on the fourth case, 17 Baltus Roll, and is no longer present this evening.
All right, two resolutions for memorialization. Same eligible voting members for both. So first is 105 and 109 Rotary Drive, application ZB 21-2101. Eligible voting members are Vice Chairman Steiner, Mr. Yuko, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Newell, Mr. Malay, and Mr. Loikitz. We need a motion?
So moved?
Second.
All right, Mr. Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Mr. Mullen? Mr. Mullen's out. Ms. Newell? Yes. Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
All right, and next is 143 Passaic Avenue, application ZB 21-2118. Same eligible voting members. And a second?
Second.
All right, Vice Chairman Steiner?
Yes.
Mr. Yuko?
Yes.
Ms. Newell? Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
And we have minutes from April 4th to approve. Would somebody like to move those?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
All right. With that, we are adjourned to Monday, May 16th.